Abusafo mamunya jo enyumre eba UTV enyumre no sia kasebo so enyumre yatena se die semufo asem na ewose yede esomu ene yede ba besomu no enyumre se o DSTV na channel 360 usabekan ho sanso en Facebook and so UTV Ghana ho and YouTube so usabekan na wahwe nsem bi na wati bi ho sanso ene yede aseda ema this way chocolate drink you hear news so share but modern pebinom esanse nye ensuo nko eye aduane ankase sanse koku na womu ejina mu ama ahode abeda be soye ade sasa ene fufusam no enya ade a eka ejina yi sanso na ensuo eye special mineral water na so penchin papa dia U2 I data salt chin papa de no aduane a wo aduane koyi na bank so dia best point awo ena odan woni tira ensem no obekọ na osika sem no toto ade nyina koyi kama na nyema ejina yi edi amo Katina sina nsema yedi ebrem no de di mu akote no ebieni
Omapenya be de akire e de laptops oha akwa University of Ghana Business School
Sanso ena penia oda African Development Bank ano owura eye akawomi adesena kyerese ombehwese obi ni wiase ebeka bom na ebeboa ebiman na biman atumi atumpon
PU Housing 24 dia tudwa se afei ena eto no a ene hyehye ya water company ene kane afford bro mba besi nkunya
Sanso ena oman ya soya ebu nkonta ehwe oman esika sem ni mudro ni Nigeria bill esi etie no kyese aduane bo ene ahyentiade ntino inflation no ehuriko 23.6% a ebresim no ene enimdifo so ebegwe ho enkomo
Akua ajiwa akode emene
enim ado afi yeransim na ye nikaya na yedan ye ni ache African Development Bank eno eye abibiman nyina sikakrabia kesepa na owura oda no eye owura akiwomi adesena ono de ensem atudwa achese wose bank no anase mpenifo da bank na nim no ehwese omni wiase ekokudo ebeka bom atoto ntotoye se ne be ya ukọ edwaso a se ba edwadia abibiman so benya baabi agina na abibiman atumi atumpon sanse wiase edwadie no aman edina aman so mo yesa ebeboa ama abibiman atumi atumpon
Ghana mampenyi abedi akire eye yewura bawomia no wakwakoye adoye adi ama University of Ghana Business School no enimode koye no eye laptops baako wo ha na ni nada ene se afrase no hye boso be na afamu di aboa amomanya laptop ibi adi ayedwuma penyina ono ede school no ano ebesere se ebeboa ama abefo hyehye ye digital no akoye ntumu hiamoa enkombenya nka eye adusuani baako bia laptop baako eno mampenya bedi akire bo ano ho ba enei wako akoye saa adoye no
Mfinhyia duosia a University of Ghana Business School no wo ba be hye ho fa no mo dan wadi ena Ghana mampani abedi akire Dr. Alhaji Mamadu Bawumia akopie mu wase a wode laptops ahodo be ese wo ha 100 ede kokoma adesuafo no o chesa afi we ye mu vice chancellor de University of Ghana no wo kasa no de tu adesuafo nanim se wo botaye bi sinani so na ne botaye ni nyina ne se obehwe na adesuani bia baako enya laptop baako wo se saabre no na owo ho no muntie to na koma so enne ne se wode se ni so ade hu no enso esi nani se ne na saade a obehwe ama vice chancellor na koma so ebisade no atimi abamu nti wakwakoche wo mo laptop no wo kire se obi a emmoa na sisi an se de ye kon digital na befo no adesuani so entimi mfa sa level no na wode to alumni ene omo a kan bia ewo mu se ya to omo nsem bie kakra se wo mo so laptop no so metimi di bia be cha adesuafo ne nka pia adesuansem so school mu hono mu a nka ebeye omo aniso pa o se alumni fo no egusua eye adwumaden e de abo school no omo ngusu anye na bibia nso ntumi mfa ne ntuma pemfra yi 60th anniversary celebration no wo mo e de nhya hodo e na egu akwan mu a wo mo de e ba be hye ho fa.
The occasion of 60 years anniversary should be a time of some kind of renaissance. We should also do some introspection and see how the future can be made more meaningful for all of us. The theme chosen is therefore very appropriate. Our mission now should be to move at a faster pace in order to be ahead. The clarion call now should be reawakening, reassessment, and revitalization of our focus. Your illustrious and celebrated alumni around the world must be proud of your achievement, and I call on all of them to support endowments and scholarships for the needy students, as well as other developmental projects the school is embarking on to create a more conducive environment for your current and future students. I promise 100 laptops to the University of Ghana Business School. Today, Vice Chancellor, I am pleased to make good on that promise, and I have here 100 laptops for the University of Ghana Business School.
My Ghana and Penifra, a show my so at the atoji of Abba Fufro, electronic levy, no, the DA Trinity, ye levy, no. Now, and a crowd shed the one crat answer my ebeto just say, Modudona, and I say more a ye mumono, and Dudona, a common penny, one in a cocasam just say, or Magi Atunano, and a UTV, a birch, the Kubisa, or ma or more a ye mumonia, dear money transfer with some say, to my dear consensus, a month for. Eda ho kasa se atete ne ade no omo hyeda entiase sen na adwumadi no ekọ no
11 no de wi a ekọ no enye memeton ade na me downfo so beto ade wo me nchen na omo se ni scanner ska ye ti omo no anu odene enti ama omo complain se sa na be ye dia omo ba meto ade because omo kasa bebre ana anu so ye de enti omo hwe na omo nya bibi fa ho because de wi aye no ha ye pa ye ton ade no you go through pains because muba no beto ade I am finding easy cry you find problems for musai no mo kasa is it ka dem say ya mo se ni yesika ne nko amaye ba omo fa bi nka ho a omo se ye beti omo na ya mo sa fa bi nka ho amaye no ye din enti pacho so mbe hwa ye bibia fa omo nya hwe fa na ye brewo street no so ye ejuma na ye sanso bread ya anu odin enke yesi ye betina fie na ye nya ejuma kra
yi live in by them say niska ye ba mean say nso mean say niska and obi say obese ni miska make so ntwen me am foka na magoji misika because me hwe ye fun me am abra akonya misika no na me fan to say oh me dey to say me pe da me hia sika na makoyi no na makoyi bi no abaso obayi bi afim un say kwase ade aba ma me ejuma yo hwa bon bebe so wan se ne ejuma mbaye yeti wo se ya na nyame adu no bi di ni TV aba na enya kakra na da hye mobile money ma aba se oba be yi tax wo mu wo mo bi vendors na wo mo bi wa obi aja ejuma no obi aba o se redraw obi am fancy can bada obi a se redraw dunto nkofo bi ejai anyina nkofo ejai
ama ye market kura asay because ya tutu ni amanumu ade a ye ton 5 cedis say 7 cedis na 8 cedis enti obi beto a obe tie ansa na watumi ato afensu wo said wa bre wa bisika wo krase a ebia wo sika ni na ye 500 ye beka say ye 100 wo mu ni na na ye how ma ye pa enti ma abana ma niama mu aye dimpa ma ye mre wa for special.
African Development Bank titinani Dr. Akeomi Adesina na wabaga na ha se sanse bank no eba be ye hyiemu ebehya se me de to so aduonu miensa kwa akopim aduonu enso na obaye no poku ase kwantempo no mo ene ma oman Ghana sika me de yoye ento de ni akwa akopempanyini si wani sama ye ni nyawo empuntudwuma mo aye no okwa akohwe no watimi adi hu adanse.
One of the things that I actually told the president today was this Pokwese Highway. And I was telling the president that I salute his leadership, his commitment, his vision, and the speed at which things are made to happen. Here I am at the Pokwese Highway, which was actually started in 2018. And in 3 years, it was completed. Quite honestly, I don't see that in many places. So I think you all should put your hands together and clap for yourselves. I'm very, very proud of that, Minister Atta. I guess maybe one of the things I might tell the president when I see him is that when he appoints ministers, maybe we should be doing twin ministers. Because, you know, just coming here, it's incredible. We provided $84 million to this project, and for the about $40 million or so that the government of Ghana also provided. But one of the things that motivated me just listening to you was the determination to make sure there is value for money. And you were talking about value engineering, wherein you essentially were able to use the monies that were meant to do 3 tiers of this interchange to actually make it to 4-level interchange. And this 4-tier interchange is the first in West Africa. It's also the second in Africa. So thank you to the government of Ghana for knowing how to optimize the resources of the bank. I'm very, very proud of that. But particularly gratifying for me is I can imagine how beautiful this will be at night. I'm going to have to find a way tonight to come back. I want to see how it looks gorgeous at night. But it is the benefits that it is having that is most gratifying for me. As you know, when somebody drives, one of the things about driving is you got to make sure that people don't create a lot of accidents. And I hope that one of the things that you will do here is to make sure that we keep our eyes on the issue of speed, so that we make sure that people drive well, drive safe, and this is very, very important. But I'm delighted to hear that in terms of accident levels, that it has gone down by 40% just because of this interchange, which is fantastic.
Yɛtɔ asɛm no so ana yɛkɔ ɔman ya so ya ehwɛ nkontabuo so Ghana Statistical Department na pani oda no statistician no Professor Samuel Kobena anim ene ensɛm de ababtudwa ɛkyɛ esan aduane bo a ɛkɔsoro na asentiade nso ɛkɔsoro ntino ɔman sika susudua meche inflation no ɛkɔ aduonumiensa echiepo miensia na ɛkyɛ 23.6% ɛkyɛ emfie bebrebe ɛna sa inflation akosra ohwe enimdifo nso mo de ba say efi afi 2004 breso na inflation ehuru say sa brede akosro pa
Ebra Banku Ntabufo Penny government statistician Professor Samuel Kobena enim enen centrofo kasa no en wo che say we no wo ma chemu 9 na che say yebenya transport ewo mu eno no eye 33.5%, household equipment and routine maintenance eno 28.5%, food and non-alcoholic beverages eno 25.6%, ene ne keka ka ho a na ye buy gas any fuel na eno no ejina 25.0%, ena wo che say omamu ni nyina de no kane no na nka 23.6% ye fa ngo de no na wo ka ne sa no nso sisi ano ba bi ehura akwakodu no 25.0%, enti epu inflation no apeja akwakodu 23.6% a wo che say ye de toto march de ana no ye 19.4% nwa na che say epeja ne mu pa na ye nko no mantem no upper east region recorded lowest inflation rate wo mo de no ejina 18.4%, central region na che so wo munyania e wo shop highest inflation rate 26.7%, nensem no de for NMC.
Highlight with 25 figures that we hope would guide our conversation around GDP estimates last quarter 2021 and the whole period, that is annual GDP for 2021. Keeping in mind the last quarter growth rate of 7.0%, which culminated to 128,632.4 million Ghana cedis. This is from the oil perspective, and as was indicated, when all the sources of GDP have been taken into consideration in measuring GDP for the last quarter of 2021. From a non-oil perspective, we did record for the last quarter of 2021 106,536.2 million Ghana cedis. This is indicating the change that we've seen over the period. We look at this also from the GDP estimate using 2013 for constant prices, so the 128,623.4 million, which stood at current prices, led us to 47,397.3 million, which is when we discount the effect of prices. We also look at this from the subsectors perspective, and as was indicated, we saw the services sector being in the lead, followed by the industry sector, and the least being the agricultural sector. We also look at this from the annual perspective, keeping in mind that with a growth rate of 3.6 for the first quarter of 2021, the second quarter growth rate of 4.2 the third quarter growth rate of 6.5%, and the last quarter growth rate of 7.0%. The overall growth rate for 2021 stood at 5.4%, which corresponds to 459,130.9 million. With the just ended population and housing census, this translates to a per capita GDP of 2,565 Ghana cedis as per capita GDP for the year 2021. On a quarter-on-quarter basis, as was indicated, for the last quarter of 2021, we did record 1.8 growth rate relative to the third quarter of 2021, and for the third quarter, 1.5 relative to the second quarter. For the second quarter, 0.9% relative to the first quarter, and for the first quarter of 2021, 1.0 relative to the last quarter of 2020. From a subsector perspective, again on an annual basis, we did record a contraction for the industry sector, specifically with the industry sector contracting by 0.8%, which was largely driven by what we saw in the mining and quarrying sector, subsector, and again, which was driven by the oil and gas contraction.
Yakwa homaso na nenim di for baako akasa ne Dr. Adams Asafotey kasa afa ensem ya abai ho se the inflation ehuri de ka e de kiro manma timemifo ankasa. Mr. Adams, otimen ka mo eba UTV so anwure doctor. Hello doctor.
Hello.
Dr. Bacho, otimen ka?
Me too, kind.
Dr. Bacho, inflation from 19.4 say according to 23.6, then na eka edichere oman no baby inflation yakwa akodu.
Hello, my brother. Good evening to your listeners. Unfortunately, I'm not hearing you well, but essentially you are talking about inflation and how it affects the economy.
Okay.
Right. I just want to let my tree is not that good. But
you
I'll try to explain it as I go along.
English, yeah, you can mix it.
Essentially, when we talk about inflation, it's just about the levels at which prices rise in the economy. And over the period, just between January this year and now, prices have increased by over 20%. That means that if you are holding 10 cedis that can buy a certain item in January, that 10 cedis, you have to add somewhere around 2 cedis in order to buy the same thing. So in that case, your purchasing power continues to reduce, to dwindle. You will not be able to do the things that you're supposed to do. But then you want to ask yourself, what causes this? Are you with me?
Yeah, Doc.
You want to ask yourself, what causes this? I will tell you that inflation that we see in the economy is generally about lack of commitment in managing the monetary aspect of the economy. And if you fail to do that, you will not be able to contain inflation. For instance, when you overspend, you spend highly on things without getting value for it. So something that you're supposed to spend, let's say, $1 billion for it, you spend about $1.5 billion, you invariably are inviting inflation. That's one component. The other component is also when you are not consuming things that you produce in your own country. It means that you are sending forex out, and therefore you don't have enough dollars in the system in order to stabilize prices. So it's a whole range of things that causes inflation, actually.
Well, Doctor, the managers of the economy, no, Russia, Ukraine, COVID, the buy, just say problems at the buy, no, and this answer way, also just spending quite fast control, secure war system, no, the buy. I said, I'm the four I show a memory soon, you can acquire Anna.
Okay. So, my brother, Adeni said, when did Ukraine start? We had COVID from around, let's say, early 20. But what came with COVID was the inflow of monies that we've received from the multilateral agencies, the IMF, the World Bank, and all of those things. These are huge inflows. So you realize that even if COVID were not to have happened, that is, if we were to have operated on a normal trajectory, those inflows that came as a result of COVID, we wouldn't have been able to accumulate that kind of, inflows. And that means that even though COVID is a bad thing, it turned out to be rather good for us, especially we in Africa, and for that matter, Ghana. Because the impact of COVID on our economies, in fact, was that less. The casualties, unfortunately, we didn't want to lose anybody. One is already enough, but we did not suffer it the way the Western countries had it. But we had huge inflows. What did we use those inflows for? And these are very critical questions that if you ask, you can't just jump over them or run away from them. We have to find out how those funds were used and for what purpose. So if COVID came to cushion us, even though we are complaining that it started from there, and then Ukraine started just about 2 months ago, less than that. And we are saying that Russia-Ukraine war is having impact on the economy. I will say that is a bit of, exaggeration.
But we know we are in the BBC say what's your money a catch your casse aduane bo kosro ashintiade kosro na che say e kan obia de be no man be because e bin so set said the kan COVID no said the problem by at the time no man be recover about ne normal state e wo said say inflation ya e push cost at the time na de be korechi but I say kwa so na e kosro eno ma be no man be titiru say transport fuel air cost na aduane bo so cost.
Right. The issue is that maybe I have to get your question right because the line is a little bit faint. But I will say that the level at which prices are rising is dangerous for the economy. Normally, you have a situation where the political elite want to see, yes.
Nam se wan timi kan na me pa che ne say problems in the waka de ben ye be ya inflation no be ba form say aduane bo fuel ni ade o man be den e na be ba form.
Well, the first thing for us to look at is that which areas are which components give us the highest inflation levels. So for instance, if we look at fuel, which for every increase in fuel affects everything in the economy. Yeah. We got to look at areas that we can cut down on the taxes. So if you look at the price build up on the fuel, we can actually identify 3 or 4 components in that price build up and eliminate them completely for now as a stopgap measure. That is key. So that when you come and say that you are reducing fuel by how much? A peso, you have not done anything. We have to identify them and take them out and make sure that there is a bit of stability. That's number one. Number two, and this is something that is critical, you may not consider it that serious. We have to look at the level at which we price dollar at the port. Please, are you getting me?
Yeah.
So, we have a situation where dollar windows are open every week at the port. So every week they bring new exchange rate. My proposal is that practice must stop. We can do it over a 6-month window. So for instance, if we peg the dollar at, let's say, 5.8 today at the port for conversion of prices for export, duty calculation, it should be after 6 months before we review that. That brings some level of stability in the system. And then we look at other components, let's say our imports and what to do. And those ones are supposed to be long-term. But immediately we can look at these areas and it will bring some level of stability.
Doc, you're bringing to anyway, you better say, you're Dr. Adams Asafotei, or no financial economist, Gimpa, and no Ekasarina, inflation, no more boy. Ehuru ekosro ene ene twetwe ho enkomo no o kire se nyoma be yia eso man no hwe kwan a otutu ne sika sam titiru ene dollar eno na wiase nyina yɛdidi dwa no sɛ ba sɛ dollar no ekɔ soro deɛ ɛma nneɛma akɔ soro saa nso na fa ngo bo no so sɛ yɛahwɛ ne yɛnyi tax ne bi amfifi so na amma fam mbretia yi mu a ɛno nso deɛ ɛbɛma nneɛma bɔ ne adeɛ atumi akɔ soro wei ɛyɛ nkɔmɔtwetwe a yɛn no ɛtwetwe yɛna yɛn ho na yɛmfa aseda edi kan ɛma yɛaboafoɔ ɛtwa yɛn ho ba yɛbɛto ansɛm no so ama mo.
Yama yehu akwaba fe yento akase bono eso MTTD eye posi adwumako no nkrabata omo na ehwe kwan so emra hodo no na ne de na ewo mantem no mu ne mpenifo aye kasa ho dwumade de ama hyenkafo enam so ama chief superintendent Steven Tinkra ono eno da MTTD no ano ewo bunu mantem no de atodwa se ahyenkafo no a omo ekan ahye akese atenti no Amo de fa niema ma ne bro so afensu bi e de fanua enam so ma kwanhie si na afensu ma traffic ba enti omunya hwe ya nyesa embra betia wo
se cars ni bi ba betwam no ma lodu enua no tenten enti ebedu baabi no behwe na enua no adane agubo se bi a trailer no kra na eyi afi car ni ti no so na adane na ehwe agu na afi ne bi o na de accident ba because se bro nyanum kra no baako esi ewo sunyane mpotanum bi eno ne nua no bi ehwegu wɔchema bi a wapon adwuma a wɔkɔfi hwegu no so ma ɔhwere ne nkwa enti no na yehu sɛ eni sɛ yɛtena hɔ ma saa nneɛma wei no ɛkɔ so enti no ya regional commander de si ne na so sɛ ne MTTD for yina yɛnhwɛ na afei no emra bi ɛfata bia no yɛmfa enye adwuma enti yɛn so yɛhyɛ aseɛ sɛ saa enua yi ɛba bɛsen ɛwɔ sunyane hade a emra bi a ɛsɛ yɛfa so na yɛma emra ne adwuma no yɛbɛyɛ enti yɛ start sɛ ne bedu sunyane ha bia no yɛbɛkye no yɛbɛsusu because emra ne sɛ uyusu car bia car no tenten free esoro ebesi form no eni sɛ ɛbro 4.5 meters ohwɛ LI 2180 regulation 51 na mention no say you twi car bia eni sɛ car no ne tenten no ɛbro 4.5 enti no say du ha your tape measure e de enti ye measure from the top to the ground as a bro 4.5 ye de ne hia nsɛ mremu no ye bɛkyew ne ye de akɔ enti ya chichi bibri e ma ye de omo akɔ in fact ye kɔ no court fine bia 500 Ghana cedis apart from that no court nso ma order say ye supervise na omunyi so to the required height no 4.5 no na ye intenu ye de esi ye ni so aye guso aye hu adwuma
say MTTD for na me ya we say o machi bi o mo do be court because they so mun so mo be training enti yeso ye kwa training stakeholders no enti the American say ba bia mra wo no se ye de den e to because carnage on the road no e too much eni se kwan we so be boa maswate a ye mu se o se ye nyina de ye som judiciary service na boa police for boa all the other stakeholders in your kambo mu ye boa ho se be ya o man no nkwa na yira wo ka kwanhia so no e so bete
Yɛto ansɛm no so na yɛkɔ mfimfini mantemu akɔpie kura ɛfrɛ hɔ mankasim na amafo mankasim kyerɛ sɛ nansɛ ehu ɛyɛ abɔ mo sanse enipa ewu ɛdeda mmeammea bi a ohu nipa kɔ eku wɔ mo enti sɛ wote kurom hɔ a na ehu ɛyɛ abɔ na baako anɛ UTV yɛka ho nsɛm yi ɛyɛ owura Anan Esando kyerɛ sɛ ɔsɔre anɔpa no sɛ nipa bi abɔ kyenku na nipa ɛne yɛkunu ɛde no ahyɛ atɛkyɛ bi mu na ehu bɔ no enti Okofra assemblyman enom ko police station police fo mienu ebaaye no ombeyi onipa na sebe wato nananom ewo nse do no nipa ne eye bema na UTV ye ne honorable Mukhtar Hassan ekasaye emo cheche ensemu sede na esi etie
ama so amati sa ayesoma yembempo ayesuro sisa kwan na wo kwan amanfo okro yi mu ye dempo ayesuro ye bepo no olbo ye dempo ayesolo owudin na olba nti yesro ma ga na yesema ankase police fo de won fo won nan sifom sisa akro yi mu ayenhu ankasa emi de sisa odo yimra mentum kwa ashal mimla mo kwa ashal na me ba obi boku nti mentum kwa ashal ti yesro ma ga na omampanyi ekufu ade yesra no so mfa ne nan sifom no ye ga na eye mahen ya panecho na mo lokodi wo kro ma ade yesuro
na iyi oma etumi gina do to youth no for o yen potema we sande ende bia size obi ayi ho akofa na ade wan cedi obeja o ma akọ anade so bi ti wufie mpo na enyim nipa no edwuma oye odenyimbru no akọ edwuma e be susu de wo hwe na dam nyima nyina abrase on cha bia be 3-4 days na me brother ko no ho nyipa bie kura na wo so de wo kum hoto no the same thing sifas the same thing is hanon enti ye besre titru mbegunu no yentu yen hofo yempa edwuma yefa yensan edwuma mbegunu no we sande wias na ayedi no be bia yin ho yize na so pra anta na adensen ana adensa de ne bia ebeji ene tu police for no so wo bombo de na so won sa won miem ma gesi ye bia wo zi gwanti ahoko na asen ba dam so yenu anoma asabi we kai you from also doso one na was alumi no so adoso kum ha desre the police from basa aye dwumazen aboa dem we de danara
honorable bullet we boundary pepe nso bi odo ho na na peye te de weku obi atom ye ba susu na oye no kwal nti ntampa na ya ma police for aswote we ba yi no ma hwa menyi nyimpa no be do fi nti kide obi mo susu wo ba hwe na wo hu be be ofi nti sesi ano ye je mama police owu dem susu e di nanan ye hwe mesma de na hu aye na o cheda acher kakra yanti so de obi nimpa we wayo yanti announcement bia na tu no so obi a so reported there nimpa yo na oye bema nenya fi bema afa onam ne be ne 30-40 nenya fi
onya da menya age because me wada yini obetum abada wada ba yami adade okay bibi o so anka bibi o motum mo ma menya nkufu afra mo ayini wo ba yami nti apre bambo a ehun oba mama ehun mo rukodo inu da ayede etwa olodoso iya mo ofa enyi mo hu awonu mu usu no nkote na obi onu mu usu no hu da ma adi ayehun oba mo wa kire because yenyi pe nyina no wo yede wo pɛ da margin nti ya besre de ya mo ofa enyi mbu hu ma awonu mu usu na se usu fo baby no one who da me koda wo mama o yede onkodo because wo imre da margin o koda obi ani nya asomdwe wo baby o yede owan
Yeji adwadi nkrato aba ye ba kase ye bonu nsi ye beto aso. Yama yahu akwaba fe yento akase bono so CBG Bank no Ghana sika krabia enyini eko animu tentem so panye asamkitoa no makoma so ade ne so behwa tutu Ghana sika samu ye na agina ne nan so enti nyuma no se yenkitoa dantemo bodwa anase mpo wala to wala sano omo yomadwen so bebom no mo dada dwumadie no omo timi akipi omo records ni ye na amfo omo ni so no musika sam no so amumfumpa enu nti omo aye bedwom adwenche ne kasa ho dwumadie e de ama adantemo ni nyuma nketenkete ni nyina
Sani ebeye na wo mo di dwa eno no ya pempem store bodwa na fe nso adantemu micro small and medium scale enterprises wo my Ghana mu wo mo betimi atetre mo kwaban mu na ne bibi o mo ye bia nso atimi akonkan ye dia bo mo adwadi ensem no ene nam so ma Consolidated Bank Ghana CBG Bank Ghana wo mo adwene se wo mo ne adwadifo mba ebedin sa wo so na mo timi ama mo ntete ya na se training e dia fo mo adwadi a wo mo di nyina ho sani ebeye wo betimi nso keep records e fa de wo mo nyina ho netimi so aboa wo mo adwadie na wo mo edi ni nyina na UTV Ntantwefo ye ne Director of Retail and Business Banking Edema Consolidated Bank Ghana Ora Emmanuel Nikoi ekasa ye no ene wo kire mu botaye a wo mo de esi wo mo ni so a wo mpese wo mo de eboa adwadifo yi sade wo mo so adwuma wo mo ye wo my Ghana mu no ebetimi afa ne ntuma pa afra
SMEs ewo Ghana ha no ye wo mo 3 levels baako a ye from micro omo no obi oton tomatoes and oton onion after no more starting omono amuntimi keep records no papa enti then I ni say you see we buy ho a wo dey save for 6 months a ebetimi amao from about 80,000 to 200,000 oho no ehun hia say we buy any record bia wo bank statement umpe na be ma usika no un keep financial statements un keep hwe ebetimi amao usika from just I would save for 6 months. Number 2, who started tabletop Debiano Obia adwin say okay me starting small but me go big and see after that tabletop no ebia now I started going to wholesaling and distributing into work on to the next segment so next segment no so ye boom because no se say no wa jai say who to niama who to tomato akoton se say no we say okay me a make pizza make pibi na ma wholesale na me timi distribute so yet me boom first one here no on after second one here no on trade se say about bookkeeping ye call every region ye free high ye call north ye nja wo ha ye training no na ye nso ye collaborate with a few institutions ye betimi provide you with enye training no pe but software ye betimi abo mo not just for bookkeeping no but one for some manage your stock 2 omu call for a payroll some betimi manage no 3 omu yes bookkeeping no some betimi translate into proper accounting records or make it ebenya proper financial statements free mu ebeya omunyia na list omu accounts no so yetimi audit
Erareta Ankra Bedu won na ye head ma SMEs CBG Bank na wakasa ye emo kire product a won waye a won de ba beboa sa adwadifo ma we nyina no matimi e de atrche won kwaban mu e wo mu dwumadie ensum
este say ye boa SMEs e se ye boa local companies ye hwe omon kwan no mutimi ye adwuma ne de cost no mutimi fa nipa na je se e de omanga na nakwanim another product so ye LPO finance sebio we ye SME na wonya contract ewo any company about the betray ya near who so why you bida and so depending on the contract sum it's me with 70% of the cost to execute the contract you know so yanju who security yanju who paperwork bia new man there will be bria ya de boy SMS
one more munya training and asencheche so mfa so the free CBG Bank for enchain efa omo SME training workshop ni nyina ho no so ye ne omo ekasa ma beneficiaries no so den sembi say etu yanim
training na omo ni ma efa record keeping no and bookkeeping no very very good me better ha na CBG mpanifo no de omo chechere no mahu se mpem bebre no ya ye ankasa ye adwuma na ye use no ye nteki records na de opanini kai na free CBG na o ka chere no amamanya suahunu bebre sasa de no se CBG ta ye kra na I don't think say small scale enterprises na ye wo krum no ye ho be kire nti eyade a me buy no manya amutoso bi wo CBG ni mu mahu se bibia me osika metumirika e de akwakoto CBG
Yɛto asɛm no so na yɛde akɔpie mu ɛwɔ Western North na yɛkɔ Western North akura yɛfrɛ Sehwi dwunase ɛma edidwa hɔ ɛna ɛkase ɔmo kyerɛ sɛ Sehwi Municipal Assembly no ɛmɔmɔden na ɔmra ɔmo mmoayem nyina sɛ kwan ho ɛna ɔmo didwa na baabi ɔmo didwa no cars ne ade ne nam hɔ ne ade du baabi a na ɔmo kura ɔmo so no dagyem sɛ nkwanhyia bi ɛbɛha ɔmo enti Assembly no nhyɛ dansi edwa papa ɛma ɔmo na ɔmo sɛ ɔmo no man kom kodidwa sanse baabi ɔmo tene deɛ ɔmo so no ekugye mu
mebre makasa sa omumua me enakura omode yabaha no omo di matem nanso eyamasadi te say di sa me ye ntimigusu ameye na yade sradia ne say yeda nanansuo nsuo ahena ase yeda nanamahene ene ne ahemfo ne ne mpanifo nyina ase na yade sradia yade to abanyanim ne say eha na yaba no yehia mwa yehia sa obafele amayen na menso medi anim na obi anya ba bi atena na yabeba apata amayen na yamaye nsuo na yamaye toilet na yamaye dwaye yehia omo aban no so ne moa a obetimi di aboa ya fi se nana ade ha amaye enti onim wa bia bi mo edi so de boa ya no na ode aboa ya no famblem na meboa ya enti omo ma ne nso aban na omo na meboa ya mesro mo mensada mensayem na mesro mo owo ya to batan waja ne ma ho no enti ne ye beka bia no mu ni su no mu free kwan na no no mo mra inside na ye nyina ye nya adwuma na nya fe
na no kwan si ya no amata na wa no yampe yenti bebre kura twahwe esanse na ni sanka basa enso anya si awie enti ne aka ne se abanda roma enna na European a otoso miensa eye nzuenzu ahene aba petra bia amayen ye seka na abansto omrem oba ajane bia amayen bebia bedware ana fie mo apatama ene nhyase ye sen bebre ani ense ano also mo ba mu kwa akire na for me street bombs na for me security sense anye kwaya no akonfo betumi ato abese so nto me tight security
baby edi omo aba nei kaya di omo aba da but na mpanifo ni bi atwentwa wo mo na ase na de si ye ne yempese nka besi bate no so si ye no e na aboa ye ne a yetumi afede ye di omo hina abegu ha enne aye nzonzu ajanhye ye ya mo hina amoni tu a ye ne wo ekasai enti na ya de se ne yetu ho na modada enti ye bibi na eka ye na ya de ne ye di ho dwuma dada enti na de be hia se de tie biara no ye de omo ba na bi ansa nkosi biem
na ha ena rema ho kwan makase ba ne enwumre yesa kan ye no edimu ebesi ye de ba edimedin edi anim admene
Ekwia ajewa akode LS Kutu ono na share matade o Dansuma Junction Abuben Fisherman's House no ewo Dansuma 0244 378740 ena mitini so eye classy hair trains omo ewo hachu eye plaza honomo a eno so ye 0557288988 Belinda ofrene professor to out ama ho aye fe ya damu nyina mase ama mumu enetwa ye ko akotwa lutu